new babe.
What's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. Now listen, a little bit frustrated right now, but it is what it is. Ain't nothing I'm not used to. Small things to a giant. You know how the saying goes, right? So yeah, man, I had just did the NF reaction. It was blocked. Then I did another reaction to, what was it? Like, things about your body that you didn't know. It was a crazy video. It got blocked. So I had two videos back to back get blocked, man. So it's crazy, but you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. We know the nature of the beast, rules of the game. So we just got to push through it. All right. So the next video is they were repairing Jesus' statue and realized that something was hidden inside. I don't know how I would feel about that, bro, because that would literally blow my mind. You start automatically thinking, is this a sign? Is this, you know what I mean, a sign from God? Am I supposed to take this? Am I not supposed to take this? Am I supposed to read it? Am I not supposed to read it? If it's that, whatever it is on the inside, what type of value or impact is going to have on your life? Should I have touched it? Should I have left it there? Like, it would drive me insane. I wouldn't know what to do, bro. You know what I'm saying? I would be seeking help and somebody's professional opinion. Let's see what happened.
As a child, you too pretended to be Jack Sparrow and search for treasures somewhere in the wild. Or maybe you'd like to search for all sorts of hidden treasures in video games. In any case, the delight of discovering something new and mysterious is the best feeling ever. And the funny thing is that sometimes people get it when they least expect it. For example, when they find something left by the ancestors in an ancient item. So without further ado, let's dive into the stories right now. Watch the video to the end and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get it on.
Let's get it on.
Jackpot under the lid. There is a profession called a piano tuner. Every day, the tuner goes from house to house and fixes old and modern instruments. He inspects the wood, adjusts the string tension, and prepares pianos for performances. Sounds boring? Well, not all the time. An incredible story once happened to Martin Backhouse from Britain. His services were needed in a local college that had recently received an old piano as a donation for students. Martin began checking the sound of the instrument and immediately suspected something was wrong. The keys sounded really strange. A layman might not have noticed this, but Martin heard it right away. He's never heard a piano sound this way. After opening the lid of the piano, the master began to tinker under the string plate. You never know, maybe the strings were out of tune. But unexpectedly for himself, he found some bizarre bags inside. What was it? Some kind of prank? Without thinking twice, Martin unrolled the cloth bags and couldn't believe his eyes. Inside were old coins, which obviously cost a lot of money. There were
Why can't I find, well, number one, I have no business around the piano, so I probably would have never came across that because A, I can't play it, and B, I can't fix it. So, but why can't I stumble upon something? Why should it be like some astronomical number that it's worth?
not 10 or even 50 of them. In total, the tuner found about 1,000 gold coins inside the piano. Of course, the school immediately sent the discovered treasure for checking. Turned out the piano was produced in the British capital at the beginning of the last century, and the coins hidden inside were worth £500,000. Not bad, huh? It's hard to imagine how furious the former owners of the instrument must have been. After all, they've lived side by side with a fortune for so many years, and in the end, they never received a penny. Though Martin and the school's management then ended up splitting the treasure evenly. What an amazing story. Real La Gioconda. Perhaps
like some people have all of the luck, bro. I'm gonna tear this house up and see can I find something.
in the history of art, there are few paintings as mysterious as the Mona Lisa. Many questions have surrounded this work by Leonardo da Vinci for centuries. What's the real identity of the model? Is it true that the artist painted a self-portrait? How did he manage to create such an unusual smile? And why does La Gioconda always look at the viewer, no matter the angle? Well, it seems the next discovery will raise even more questions. A few years ago, a French scientist, Pascal Cotte, found another portrait under the Mona Lisa. How is this possible? Did the guy take a scraper to remove the layers of paint from one of the most valuable paintings in the world? Of course not. To do this, the specialist used the reflective light technology, which he'd been perfecting over many years. Here's how it works. A powerful beam is projected onto a canvas, and then the reflection is analysed by a computer. The latter reconstructs the layers of the picture, and we see what's hidden underneath. Pascal Cotte managed to use this technology after the Louvre finally gave him access to the painting after many requests. But what was hidden there? A portrait of another girl, naturally. Though it's difficult to say it has anything to do with the Mona Lisa. It seems that we're looking at a completely different person, not Lisa Gherardini. Is this the real Mona Lisa? Art critics will probably struggle with this question for years to come. Message from ancestors. In recent years, the United States government has been actively demolishing monuments to the Confederates, representatives of the slave-holding southern states who fought against the North during the American Civil War. Often, these events are accompanied by scandals, but this time, the commotion in the media was caused by a different reason. The workers who were dismantling the statue of General Robert Lee in Orlando found something strange in its pedestal. A rusty chest was hidden in the monument, which apparently ended up here many centuries ago. Would you resist the temptation to open such a time capsule? Well, the workers from Orlando had no choice. They handed the chest over to the authorities, and like everyone else, began to wait until they opened it. It had been decided to open the chest during a ceremony, which was recorded on video. Inside was a yellowed issue of a newspaper dated 1911. It told how a local drowned in a lake nearby. God only knows why the ancestors considered it important to pass on such news to future generations. In addition, small Confederate flags, letters, banknotes, and other historical documents were also found inside. It's amazing how these items preserved so well in the moist earth.
That's what I was just looking at. The first thing he took out was, you could tell it had been beat up a little bit with time and weather. But the rest of this stuff looked like you could read it like they just wrote it. Look at this. Like newspaper articles and clippings. That's a letter. And that right there. I can't really tell what that is. But yeah, like this stuff really held up. I'm surprised.
Which is literally teeming with ants and other insects. Key to the secret. Sometimes we live next to something incredibly valuable without even realizing it. People usually mean love when they say that, but the same is true for treasure hunting. Here's a good example. Last year, Aliyah Eladany, a museum worker at a university in Aberdeen in Scotland, was sorting out the artifact at a local vault. Imagine her surprise when she suddenly saw a strange box with Egyptian symbols. The woman couldn't mistake them for anything else, since she grew up in Egypt and worked for 10 years in a Cairo museum. Turned out, the unusual box was a cigarette case, though there was no tobacco inside, but several pieces of wood. So what, you might ask? Just
if there was some tobacco in there, you don't want to smoke that. That'll give you the worst headache you had in your entire life, bro.
some useless wood, no big deal. That could be true, but that kind of wood was special. Abir Eladany discovered an artifact about 5,000 years old. The archaeological community believed it had long been lost. If you still don't understand how some old wood chips could be of any value, listen further. This item is one of the parts of the so-called Dixon relics. There are 3 of them, just like the Deathly Hallows in Harry Potter. At the end of the 19th century, these relics were found in the Great Pyramid of Giza. That is why this discovery is so important for archaeology. Maybe it will finally shed some light on the mystery behind the construction of this marvel of architecture. Personal diary.
Wow.
As you've already noticed, often all sorts of artifacts are found in the most unexpected places. But this story is a little different. Restoration artists were working on a wooden statue of Christ, which has been kept for almost 250.
That would freak me out. That would just, man. Just looking at it now, and then finding something inside. Yeah, I knew.
50 years in the temple of the Spanish town of Sotillo de la Ribera. Suddenly, they discovered that the statue was hollow, and inside were hidden ancient scrolls with records. But the most interesting discovery.
Don't read that.
Lied ahead. The messages were written by a local priest who served here at the end of the 18th century. On the scrolls, the Holy Father describes the history of the creation of the statue and also shares some details from the life of the Spaniards of that time. For example, he wrote about an excellent harvest and an abundance of wines in the bishop's cellars. He also complained about the typhus epidemic and boredom in isolation. Well, today we can understand him more than ever. Spooky detail. Mexican scientists who studied another wooden statue of Christ in the municipality of Zumpango de Ocampo made a shocking discovery a few years ago. During the restoration, it turned out that the head of the 300-year-old sculpture hides real human teeth. It's important to note here that the very fact of seeing the teeth didn't surprise the researchers. In Mexican culture, it's not uncommon to attach teeth or claws to sculptures, but only those that belonged to animals like dogs or foxes. But in this case, the analysis shows that those were human teeth. Also, they didn't serve any aesthetic purpose because it's very difficult to see the teeth behind tightly closed lips. The main question is then, how did they end up there? The answer, though, is much simpler than it might seem. The explanation has nothing to do with mystical forces. It used to be a common practice among many believers in Mexico to bequeath their bodies to the church. Apparently, some parishioner wanted to preserve a memory about himself in such a unique way. Painting in a painting. The things you do during the lockdown not to go crazy without talking to people. By the way, share in the comments if over the past year you've discovered you had a hidden talent. An employee of the National Gallery of Victoria in Melbourne, Australia, accidentally made a great discovery while walking alone through the pavilions of his museum. The head of conservation, Michael Varco Cox, examines the paintings with a conventional flashlight. What for? Well, it's just easier to notice any irregularities on the canvas this way. Irregularities can mean that something else is hiding under the top layer. This is exactly what Michael spotted on one of the usual October days. Suddenly, he discovered another painting under the famous work by Australian artist Frederick McCubbin. To check the accuracy of his guess, Michael examined the X-ray of the canvas, and what he saw was a real miracle. A canvas that had been considered lost throughout the last century, though it's impossible to get it out. Turned out McCubbin had painted a new work right on top of the old one. Creative people do have their fancies. Shaman artifact. Archaeologists who work with ancient burial mounds in Russian Siberia are used to discovering various creepy stuff. The nomads who lived there several thousand years ago were famous for their unusual rituals. However, the discovery that scientists made quite recently surprised even the most experienced specialists. We are talking about an old clay head, which was discovered 40 years ago in the Minnesinsk Hollow, along with the remains of 15 people. Back then, the experts didn't open the head. They were afraid it would break. After all, the relics are more than 2,000 years old. But not so long ago, archaeologists decided to check the contents of the head using X-rays. Turned out there was the skull of a ram hidden inside. But why this particular animal? Historians say that this was a sacred animal for ancient people. They used it instead of a human head because they probably failed to find the head of a deceased person. Greetings from the past. If you ever write a letter to the future you or your descendants, make sure it reaches the addressee. Otherwise, your time capsules might get lost, as in the following story. But thankfully, things worked out eventually. In 2014, reconstruction was underway on the grounds of the old Capitol building in Boston. When it came to the fantastic lion figure that adorns the roof, the workers were in for a surprise. Inside, they
How much y'all think that cost, though? That lion figure? Yeah, I guarantee that'll set you back several mil.
was an old chest that looked very much like a time capsule. Local researchers decided to immediately check the city archives and found that at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, a message to descendants was actually hidden in this place. Inside were newspaper clippings, autographs of local celebrities, letters, and photographs. After carefully studying the contents of the capsule, the Boston authorities decided to add some new items to the collection and put the chest back for the people of the next century. What would you leave for the future generation? Big jackpot. During the auctions, there's definitely no shortage of different valuable stuff. Seems that there's no end to all kinds of artifacts. But sometimes relics prove to be even more valuable than the researchers originally thought. This story happened at an auction in Australia, where appraisers discovered an ancient bill inside the 600-year-old Buddha's head. The bill was almost as large as a whole letter sheet. Turned out, it was issued in the second half of the 14th century in China. Moreover, it became the oldest piece of paper money ever discovered by archaeologists. However, the artifact was put up for auction together with the Buddha and sold for almost $36,000. Sacred relics. Trading in Asian art is one of the most lucrative businesses at the world-renowned auction house Christie's. Selling figures of Buddhist deities for millions of dollars is a common thing here. Take for example this gilded bronze Bodhisattva statue. Just imagine, it's about 600 years old. Of course, such a relic is worth a fortune, but this figurine turned out to be much more interesting than the appraisers initially assumed. At some point, they noticed that there was something inside the object. Turned out the figurine was indeed hollow, but opening it and looking at its contents was way too risky. After all, the relic was very fragile. Therefore, Christie's decided to examine the Buddhist relic under X-ray. Inside, they saw a small scroll, pieces of cloth, and many small beads. Apparently, all these objects were used by Buddhists to perform religious rituals in ancient times. Here's another example. Early 14th century manuscripts found inside wooden statues at the Haeinsa Temple in South Korea. It is a pity that not all of these artifacts can be obtained and studied up close. Imagine how disappointing this must be for researchers. Hold on a second. Do you want to see some crazy stories?
Yeah, that's crazy, man. Some of this stuff is hidden, and I'd be lying to you if I didn't say, bro, some of the stuff I think somebody might have just planted there. You know what I'm saying? And you have to think like that, bro, because people will pull the wool over your eyes just to make you think something's worth more than it actually is, and have you overpay for it and they pocket the profits, bro. So you got to be careful. Now, a lot of this I do believe was actually real, but some of it I'd be like, no, I'm not buying it. You know what I mean? But it's crazy, bro, when you realize what's hidden in certain things, man. And then when they tell you how long it's been there, 5 centuries or however long, 5,000, like, that's crazy to me. That's crazy, man. And it held up, and then you get to take a look inside of either what they were trying to tell the future people and what was possibly going on at the time back then. I'm not a historian, you know what I'm saying? But it's still pretty cool to see stuff like that. You know what I mean? To continue to make these discoveries, which I think there are tons and tons and tons more out there. It's just pretty dope, man. Like, I would have been the one person that wanted to find the coins. That would have been something for me. Let me find the coins, bro. I got to research how much that was in US dollars, and I'll get back to y'all after that. All right, so y'all get at me in the comment section. Let me know what y'all thought of these videos, man. The ones that weren't blocked. It's your boy L, man. Y'all stick around and stay tuned to the next reaction of my piece. Y'all stay solid. Hey.